Walmart employees. What's the worst thing you have seen inside your store? Story 1. So, I used to stock the craft section on overnights. I'm kind of an awkward person, so no human contact was great for me. This old guy on a scooter insisted upon sitting in my aisle for like hours just staring at the needles. Okay, whatever, I stocked everything I could, but finally I needed him to move. And honestly, I was a little creeped out at this point. I mentioned it to my manager on the way to lunch. After lunch, he was gone. Turns out he had died there like 5 hours ago. Story 2 had a customer in a motorized scooter, his personal one, not store-provided, come up to me at the sporting goods desk, and he asked me where the cans of compressed air are. I walk him over to some, and he thanks me, grabs a can off the shelf, and proceeded to start huffing it right in front of me. Story 3, my time to shine. First job out of high school, 2009. Moved cross-country to be with my girlfriend. Ended up working at a Walmart as a janitor overnight in the worst part of town in Tulsa, Admiral Memorial for any locals. This place had everything it could underlock. High theft. And a few people had died there. So the workers nicknamed it Kill Mart. One night, a guy is in the sporting goods area and wants to buy something. He takes his wallet out, sets it on the counter for a second. Thief walks up and grabs it, runs off. The victim proceeds to grab a golf club, chase the man down, and violently beat him in an aisle. Blood. Broken neck. I'm like 95 positive the guy died. Destroyed aisle. Everyone in the store flipped. A bunch were calling people to view it in the CCTV room. My manager waved me down and asked me to clean up the aisle so the store would look nice for the morning. You know, the crime scene. I clocked out for lunch, quit the next day. Story 4, I've only been working at a Walmart for 2 weeks. I've had 3 people lose their temper on me. One woman slammed her card into someone else's cart because she couldn't buy alcohol with an expired ID, and one guy tried to walk away with a whole cart of groceries, in which a different customer walked after him and literally dragged him back inside. Again, 2 weeks. Ed, I'm getting asked this a lot. So he'll explain, stores can't accept expired IDs because they're considered invalid. If invalid IDs were accepted, then it would create an aftermarket for those IDs, which would then make it easier for people under 21 to get a hold of something they could potentially use to illegally purchase alcohol. Story 5, I worked at Walmart about 20 years ago, being the manager of the photo lab before digital took over, so my department was right next to the electronics department. I'm chatting with the manager of the electronics department, and all of a sudden we hear a woman yell, "Here it comes." We then see a middle-aged woman frantically scuttling down the aisle, holding her shorts near the back. She ran to the restroom, leaving a trail of liquid behind her. It looked like when a dog is sick and you're trying to get them out the door before they make a mess all over your carpet. And they keep stopping to every few seconds. An employee went in with a pair of pants off the shelf to help out. She put them on and made a beeline toward the exit without paying for them, leaving her soiled shorts in the stall on the floor. Story 6, somebody put bleach ammonia and drain in the fish tanks. Another time, somebody sprayed deer pee all over the toy section. I'm really glad I don't work there anymore. Story 7, it's kind of shitty to bring up because it's sad and not trying to make fun of the guy. But it's like 4 a.m. and this man dressed in a suit and fedora comes in. No face. I concluded some kind of cancer had ate away his face. All he had left was eyes and a massive cancerous hole. He just gurgled. We had to have him write down what he needed. It was sad, but got it. It scared the absolute out of me, and I never really forgot. Story 8, not an employee, but a very frequent Walmart shopper. All the Walmarts around me are pretty nice. Never seen anything nasty going on, but there was an incident once that still sticks with me to this day. When I was younger, my mom had to grab meds at Walmart in the middle of a storm. It wasn't a bad storm or anything, just very rainy with some thunder, but it was supposed to continue for several days. So of course the store was packed. So we were in line at the in-store pharmacy, and there was a man who was clearly mentally disabled with a helper in the front of the line. The man between us and them was this dude who in my young mind must have been a lawyer. Did not fit the stereotypical Walmart look at all. Wearing an expensive-looking suit, perfectly gelled hair, literally carrying a briefcase. He looked annoyed that he was there at all. He intensely reminded me of Patrick Bateman, just an air of disinterest and arrogance, and was brushing his coat off every time anyone walked too close to him. Everything's fine, and the guy and his helper at the front of the line get their prescriptions and start to turn around. Just as they do, there's a huge thunderclap, and suddenly, the power goes out in the store. It's not pitch black, but it's dark as, and immediately there's commotion in line. I look up just in time to witness disabled man punch lawyer dude square in the face. Lights flicker, come back on. Lawyer man is standing there holding his nose looking like he's ready to murder someone. Disabled guy is freaking out. Helper is profusely apologizing and trying to help lawyer guy. Lawyer guy waves him off with a glare, walks to the front, and calmly says his name info, and throws down some money. Pharmacist hands him prescription, which he snatches wordlessly and turns away. Brushing past me, still holding his nose, leaving a trail of blood on the linoleum floor. I don't know why, but the entire thing felt so surreal. I still remember it like it just happened. Wildest thing I've ever seen in Walmart. Story 9. I worked at Walmart for all of my teenage years, and there was so much where it shouldn't be. That's the most disgusting. The worst would have been when some thieves attempted to run out the door, followed closely by loss prevention, turned around and sprayed them with mace, which then wafted into the store. A few seniors had to be taken to the hospital for respiratory issues. Everyone working in the store spent all day coughing as the mace lingered in the air, because heaven forbid they shut the store down and think of anyone else's health. Story 10 watched a high schooler stoned out off his mind trip over his own feet and slam through a middle aisle display of those egg crate file holders. Those suckers went everywhere. Also an old woman tracking diarrhea through the store trying to find a bathroom, caused she herself. Story 11 worst ever, some people signed up for an oil change, then threw one of those household bug bomb foggers into their car while they waited. When the technician went out to pull the car in, it was full of white smoke from the insecticide, and the interior was covered in thousands of roaches, all trying to escape the fog. We told them to leave. Worse this week, guy signs up for an oil change, and the technicians find 2 live cats in under the hood of the minivan. The owner came out to deal with it, saying they were his. Story 12, other than the people freaking out and throwing, and one junkie who continuously stole cans of compressed air for dusting computers to do whippets in a handicapped bathroom. How that didn't kill him, I still don't know. One story stands out. This elderly, obese woman came in with her service dog, a little chihuahua or something, probably for anxiety, gets one of the electric scooters, puts the dog with its leash into the basket. During the course of her shopping, the leash goes through the grate of the basket onto the floor and gets run over by the wheels of the scooter. The leash gets twisted up in the motor of the scooter. Eventually, the leash gets yanked tight and begins to strangle the dog. The dog uses what little air it has to panic, but quickly falls silent. The woman does nothing about this. Once she gets to the front of the store, she decides to check on the dog strangled to death 6 inches in front of her. She flips and screams at every employee she can find, telling them to do something. Save her dog. I guess she didn't know it was dead. It was her fault, blah, blah. The dog had been dead for almost 20 minutes before she decided to check on it, and all over the inside of the cart that she didn't manage to notice or smell for 20 minutes. I no longer work at Walmart. I unfortunately have no idea whether she sued or not, or what really came of it afterwards. Ex-employee saw some crazy lady, probably on some kind of drugs, take out her tampon and throw it at someone because they didn't like her tone. Crazy just plucked it out and tossed it like a hand grenade. Story 13, I was an overnight manager at the time. The store is located in the shittiest area of a major city at a 24-hour store. At around 2 a.m., the overnight loss prevention associate had just caught a guy shoplifting on the cameras, and I had been called up to help him. Things go smoothly. The guy had stolen less than $50 worth of stuff and complied, so it went pretty easy. After letting the shoplifter go, the loss prevention associate had some paperwork to do, so I jumped on the cameras to see what's going on in the store. I soon find a shady-looking individual lurking around the electronics department. He's clearly making sure no one is in the vicinity watching him. He sneaks into an aisle and grabs an all-in-one monitor desktop combo wrapped in spider wrap. I still don't know why a 1000 computer wasn't locked behind a cage. He quickly takes it to a different aisle, easily works the spider wrap off the box, takes the computer out and shoves it into his sweatpants. Slinking over into the clothing racks and apparel, he hides the computer in some pants and sneaks around for the next 15 to 30 minutes trying to watch the employees up front by the registers. At this time of night, only our cigarette aisle is open. All of a sudden, while watching a blonde lady in our only open register line and crouched behind a rack of shirts, he pulls out his and starts wanking it. Then he wiped himself clean on a shirt that was hanging in front of him. At this point, we know we don't want to deal with him at all, so we call the cops. Well, as soon as he finished cleaning off, he heads back to where he hid the computer, puts it back in his pants, and starts to head our way. We realized he was going to get to us before the cops. So as soon as he passes out last point of sale, we head out of the monitoring room and confront him. It is here that I should mention that we are supposed to be a hands-off store, as in if we confront a shoplifter, we're supposed to stop them with words. But at this location, in the middle of the night, everybody's a runner. Obviously, this guy decides to run. We tackle him and pin him to the ground. Luckily, soon after the police show up, and we let them handle him from there. Edit, change student to sudden. Story 14, I worked customer service at Walmart for a little bit, and one night, just as I was closing customer service down, a man came in screaming for help. He was wearing a white shirt, but it was drenched red in some areas. He said he was shot twice, and he thought he was going to die. He lifted up his shirt to show us he wasn't just some druggie, and really needed help. Lo and behold, there were 2 holes bleeding around this man's torso. Lucky for him, an off-duty paramedic was in line buying groceries and called in fast for the ambulance. Story 15, non-employee. But I felt really bad for one. My brother was at Walmart with my friend and I. We were looking through pet stuff, and there was an aisle with plungers at the end. Being the 13-year-old he was, my brother could not resist the temptation of picking one up and sticking to the floor. We laugh a little. After he does this, he goes to put it back, and the whole rack falls down. He's frantically trying to place all the plungers back as my friend and I are running away and cackling. Then an employee walks up and starts to help him. Apparently, the whole shelf, 3 racks of plungers, was unstable, and as they were putting the last few on, the racks above clattered to the ground. And now, there are probably 50 plungers rolling around on the floor. My friend and I are dying watching from the clothing section. The employee just puts his head down, sighs, and tells my brother he could just leave. We didn't get in trouble or kicked out, but I'm so sorry for that poor employee. It was funny as though. Story 16 just started a month ago, but I've already seen one covered stall and the man attempting to take a bath in the bathroom to clean himself too. I heard a father say to his daughter, "I will slap the out of you in this store, and I don't care who sees 3. And finally, a bag of it wasn't a lot, so I'm going to assume a kid's hidden behind. LEOS, once while I was restocking shelves, there was a kid into an open cereal box. Story 17, let's see. I've seen people tripping. I've seen a guy walking on 10-foot stilts, a guy with his dong out, a lady pull her pants down to adjust her panties, a guy pass out from huffing an aerosol, a chick passed out on the ground, low blood sugar, a car catch on fire, an employee die in his car in a parking lot, old and lots of fights. I'm sure there's more, but I can't remember. No, I personally didn't see some of these, but I'm friends with employees. There's nothing to do in this town, so when something happens, I hear the stories a few times. A guy whipped out his and started peeing in front of my sister-in-law. Story 18, mine's much more mild. Think of it as a palate cleanser for the rest of the horror stories in this thread. I worked at a Walmart for one summer during college. I was a courtesy associate according to my name tag, but I preferred the title of cart wrangler. My job was to recover shopping carts, help customers get big stuff into their car trucks, and keep the parking lot clean. As a result, I had a particular disdain for a class of customers I referred to as oil changers. They'd run into the store to buy some automotive product, like engine oil or windshield washer fluid, use said product on their vehicle in the lot, and then leave a mess on their way out. My most memorable was a group of kids in their late teens, early 20s like myself at the time, busted up little 4-banger sedan. I think it had no interior panels. They bought a trunk-mounted subwoofer box, installed in the lot, and left the empty cardboard box for me to clean up. Yes, it was a minor annoyance, but when there are 1 or 2 garbage cans in between each and every lane on the lot, and you can't be bothered to use one, I think my annoyance was justified. Story 19, I worked as a photo lab specialist for 2 years and saw some really awful pics. The worst was a toddler surrounded by marijuana buds and guns. We had to get the on-duty cop involved when the guy came back to pick them up. Edit for more info on why the cop was involved. I believe the guy was in the pic with the kid and had gang signs with one hand and almost putting a gun to the kid's head. It's been a while, so it's a bit fuzzy. Story 29, employee, but off-duty police officer. 2 homeless people dug out a hole into the paper towel section and were living in it. They finally found them when someone complained about 2 people having the toilet paper aisle. Also had a homeless person take a homeless alcoholic in the bike aisle. Those employees do not get paid enough. Story 21, at the time of this story, I was an overnight manager. While I was walking my rounds, I had an associate come up to me and tell me that a customer told he to get thee away from me or he'll kill you, and that he was headed towards the hardware department. She gave me a quick description: headphones, hoodie, white guy. I radioed the overnight asset protection guy so he could locate him on camera and headed out to find him. I see someone matching his description facing the other was down an aisle in hardware, and I go to confront him. He turns around, and he's holding a hatchet. I keep my distance and ask him to leave. It's then that I realize that he's talking to himself. His conversation with himself is very conspiratorial in nature. With my limited knowledge on the subject, I have always thought that he was acting like someone in the middle of a strong schizophrenic episode might, and he scares the out of me. I quietly radioed someone to call the cops and to let them know about the hatchet. They picked up a few things and headed to the registers while I followed him from 20 feet back. We opened a register just for him, and things went smoothly from there. He left the hatches at the register, but I continued to follow him from there. As he got to the front door, a line of cops confronted him with assault rifles and shotguns out and ready. He complied, and it ended as well as I could have hoped. I've posted this in another Walmart thread. It's still one of my favorite stories from my mom. My mom worked at Walmart for about a year. She actually liked it, as she was more active, but she decided to quit after the jewelry department manager had a meltdown and started throwing jewelry at customers. One old lady got pelted in the head with a heavy ring box, and it was over. Turns out the manager was selling the jewelry to friends and family. but would keep the boxes and stuff them with rocks and trash so inventory would stay the same. She had the meltdown before she was caught. They had to drag her out of the store that day. Story 22, mine actually happened yesterday. I was walking back to my area and saw one of my coworkers in front of puddle. She said, "Walk around." I responded, "I don't know." Her immediate response was, "It is urine." I lowered and shook my head and walked by. Story 23, my best friend Jeremy worked Walmart and technically died there after having an aneurysm. The worst story was about the Hamburglar. A persons who would put a packaging of raw hamburger in their cart and then change their mind and leave the hamburger in some random spot. Sometimes it would be a couple of days before the Hamburglar's deed was uncovered. It was so bad that almost every employee started inspecting their area of responsibility, and pretty soon, the Hamburglar's foul deed were being discovered very quickly because no one wanted to deal with a leaky maggot mess. Then the assistant manager got caught leaving a package of hamburger in the shoe department. Story 24, my roommate worked at Walmart for years. The worst story she told me was when some lady confused the fitting rooms for a restroom, and she took a big dump in one of the stalls, right on the floor at some point during the deed, or just after she realized what she'd done, and tried to clean it up, but all she could find was a paper towel roll. Just a roll, no paper towels, so she stuck the roll in her pile like a flagpole and went about her day. Story 25, oh brother, so many things. Let's break this up into customers and managers' actions. Customers mail made too, where one should go. Female decided used feminine hygiene products make great wall art. Male jizzed on all walls of the restroom. Older lady carried a sword into store. Back office was broken into with a crowbar. An employee who tried to stop him got struck in the head with said crowbar. Male assistant Manger would constantly talk about going down on his wife during that time. Would ask employees if they've ever done various acts. Would force male employees to climb down an unsecured ladder from the roof onto a thin metal overhang to change flag. Locked a wash station room. Forced employees to unload pallet-loaded truck in parking lot with an incline. This led to one employee breaking his arm. If I remember correctly, him waiting over an hour to go to the ER because the manager refused to call him ambulance or take him. Older female manager mixed bleach and ammonia to clean toilets. Locked male employee in cardboard baler. There are more stories, and I can go into detail if anyone is interested. Story 26, my two favorite moments. 1. Code Adam missing kid wandering the store looking for a little boy, and we see him flying down a manhole on a bike. He clipped the edge of end display and went flying to a shelf and got banged up. 2. This is the worst one. Again, young kid, maybe 7-ish, laying on the bottom part of the cart. He was looking up through the cart, and his head was at the front. Mom hit a bump. Kid slid forward, head bent back, and went into the cart while he was still on it. That one was disturbing, but he didn't have any issues other than screaming for the first minute or two after. Story 27, the worst thing a Walmart employee may ever see is obviously his or her paycheck. Walmart and the Walton crime family. I've been working at Walmart for 2.5 years, and I've seen it all. The worst thing I've seen was a man who was checking out in the self-checkout. All was good until this smell whiffed by. I didn't think much of it and figured the guy had farted. He proceeded to shake his left leg until a large slimy turd came out his pants. He took his receipt and left. Needless to say, I did not pick that up and called maintenance over. I can only imagine the feeling of a warm turd sliding down my leg. Story 28 was working part-time at Walmart and was having a smoke break. There was a guy sitting on the bench with a paper sack. I thought, oh, he's got a beer in there or something to that nature. Nope. While several of us employees were sitting there, dude pulls out a white paint can, blasts it into the paper sack, and starts huffing it till his eyes roll back. And he slumps out. Everyone was kind of in shock. But then a few seconds later, he pops up, grabbed his stuff, and went on his merry way. Story 29, I personally didn't see this one, but I heard about it. It was during the holiday season, and there was an older woman who went into a dressing room with a bunch of clothing and came out with a lot less. She hobbled over to one of our electric carts and was slowly driving out, moaning in sheer agony. Needless to say, Softline employees noticed this and immediately alerted AP. They stopped her at the door, found a bunch of stuff out of bags in the cart that weren't paid for. And when they took her into the AP office, they found out that she had a lot more stuff on her person, lodged up her. Our AP person, with the help of a couple of cops, had to strip this old woman down in the office and remove said items from her rectum. The woman was arrested, and I don't think I've ever seen our AP woman leave after clocking out so fast that night. Story 30, not a Walmart employee. I just want to say thank you to all the retail workers out there for putting up with the you put up with and not murdering everyone you know. Seriously, you're doing God's work, and you get nowhere near enough love for it. Story 31, the Walmarts around here must be classy. I only ever hear crying babies or the occasional hushed argument. Not even so much as an exposed, but crack. Story 32, I'm a add my Kmart Stories 1. Old guy Pisces himself, and then proceeds to sit on every piece of furniture and desk chair in the store. 2. A single guy repeatedly setting the women's underwear on fire over multiple weeks. 3. A guy turning yellow and passing out right in front of me. Story 33, one of my coworkers bought weed from another. While working, they then proceeded to smoke some of it. Right in front of the store. I don't smoke, but honestly, I couldn't blame them at all. Story 34, not an employee. But I'm glad I wasn't for this one. One fateful afternoon, my bladder decided that it needed relief. So I ducked into the restroom while I was in my local Walmart. The 2 urinals were out of order, which left the handicapped accessible stall and the regular stall. Someone was in the regular stall, so I opened the door to the handicapped stall and saw what I can only describe as the aftermath of explosion. There was chocolate pudding consistency on the floor, the seat of the toilet, the wall behind the toilet, on the toilet paper dispenser, everywhere. It looked like someone had stood with their pants down, bent over, and starting spinning while letting forth like some sort of scatological lawn irrigation fountain. My bladder would have to wait. As I gently made my way out of the restroom, making a mental note to burn the shoes I was wearing that day, I saw a kindly-looking older man in a yellow vest pushing a cleaning cart toward the entrance to that hellhole of vile human and villainy. I'm not a religious man, but I offered up whatever good vibes I could muster for that man's surely soon-to-be crushed soul that day. Not Walmart, but a smaller local retail chain that was similar. Nothing overly crazy, but saw a few things over the years. The worst incident I've ever seen was someone with explosive diarrhea went into the woman's bathroom. I was told by someone else it was nasty, so I snuck a look while my manager was cleaning it up. Not only was it all over the toilet and floor, but she managed to all over the adjacent wall. We're talking a solid 3 to 4 feet off the ground and a smear that went down to the floor. I still have no idea how they got it so high. I didn't witness it firsthand, but saw the pictures a manager took from another store nearby, where the shelf that held all of the cooking oils gave out. The floor was just one mass of oil everywhere. I've also witnessed a ton of crazy people, but the one that stuck with me the most was this woman who was returning some novelty candy at customer service while I was up there, things like SpongeBob candy canes or weird things like that. Her reason for returning it, and I quote, "It's made in Mexico and China, and they fill it with poison." Sometime later, while working in the aisles, I noticed her with him, assuming her grandson like 4 or 5 years old, asking him, "Who do we buy from?" "Only U.S. and U.S. allies." Story 35, a customer in a power scooter zone. Not from a store, was at the fabrics counter asking me, what would be a good fabric that could be waterproof? He only needed a 2x2 foot piece, and I was explaining to him how I had to cut by the yard, not by what size he asked. He was not understanding me completely, and in a moment of old man anger, he lifts up his shirt, pulls his pants down, and screams, "I just want to keep my colostoma bag from freezing in the winter." I saw it all, cut him a 1-yard piece of fabric, and sent him on his way. I bleach much needed. Story 36, to roughly reiterate some details from the top comments on this account. A teenage young man ramming a cart into a crying teenage young lady as the very young, almost newborn infant seated in the toddler seat flopped around. Manager started tailing them, but I'm not sure if anything ever happened. Girl puking on me as I stood next to a trash can. Poor girl. Additionally, customer throwing clothes at me when discovering they were placed on a wrong rack not by me. At least it was just clothes. I recently started employment in another location, but so far nothing to top those two. Just the one creepy coworker who stands uncomfortably close to me sometimes. I took too long to answer a customer question one time, so she called me a piece of and stomped away. It's funny now I've become increasingly aware of the division between just people and customers when I'm interacting with them at work lately. Someone asks me calmly where the brooms are at. Person, someone whistles at me and snaps their fingers to get my attention and barks brooms at me. Customer AF. Story 37, it's been years now since I worked there, but this is something I will never forget. I worked in the photo lab, which was right next door to electronics. There was a man and a child, the child being maybe 8, looking at video games. I kept hearing the child say he had to go to the bathroom, but his father wouldn't take him or let him go alone. Long story short, the boy obviously couldn't hold it any longer and crapped his pants. The father then told the son to shake it out. The kid did just that, and tons of turds fell out of his shorts onto the floor. The smell was atrocious, and I honestly could not believe what I was witnessing. The father then walked over to my coworker and said, "Yeah, you better clean this up," and promptly left. I was stunned. Story 38, 2 really obnoxious racists were walking around the store, obviously drunk or on drugs, casually calling any black person they saw the N-word. Not sure what ended up happening to them, but pretty sure they got kicked out by asset protection. Story 39, got 2 different ones from when I worked in the wonderful Wally world. Once a customer took a child, who we later found out to be his young stepdaughter, into the family bathroom and was spanking her. He was hitting her so hard, and she was crying so loud that a coworker heard and knocked on the door. She told the man he couldn't do that in the store, and he needed to stop. The man starts cussing at her, and just takes the kid and leaves. Fast forward a few minutes, and his girlfriend wife, the child's mother, comes looking for my coworker with her other teenage daughter in tow. She starts screaming in my coworker's face, saying that my coworker had hit her husband in the face. Things are escalating, and a crowd has grown at this point, including one of our department managers and one of our managers trying to break up the situation, both women. Well, the mother decides she has had enough and tries to attack my coworker who had confronted her husband. My manager was having none of that and grabbed this woman by the arms and forced her into the shelves 15 feet away and pinned her there. The teenage daughter becomes enraged by seeing her mom and proceeds to attack my department manager. She was more successful than her mother, though. She left 3-inch claw marks down my department manager's face before she was restrained. Second, a guy was seen running toward the restroom. Moments later, he comes out vomiting up blood everywhere, literally, no exaggeration, a puddle of blood roughly 6 feet wide. No idea how much was in the bathroom. Had to call an ambulance for the guy and called a hazmat cleanup crew to get rid of the blood. This was also right around the time of all those Ebola outbreaks, and everyone was freaking out. I've never seen so much blood in my life. Story 40 standard, not Walmart, but when I worked overnights at Kroger about a week before Christmas, I was stocking the Mexican section. I was in my zone and really not paying attention. Suddenly, I hear a meek voice saying, "Excuse me, but do you have a phone?" I looked up to see a rail-thin woman in a yellow dress that looked like it was basically falling off. Her black hair was a mess, and she only had on one sock. Makeup was streaming down her face where she had been crying. My heart was racing, just because I wasn't really expecting this. People rarely speak to you overnight to begin with, and immediately upon seeing her, I assumed the worst had happened. Anyways, I told her that the phone was up front, and the self-checkout lady would gladly let her use it. Now, I never found out for sure, but she told our self-checkout lady that she had been at a party, got in a fight with her boyfriend, and gotten kicked out or left, can't remember. She then proceeded to walk around 4 miles from the next county over to our store, since it was the only place open this late. It was also in the 30s and drizzling. If you want really great stories, work overnights at a grocery store. Story 41-0. By worst, what do you mean worst a customer has done that I witnessed? Either the woman who let her son ride a motorized cart immediately hit a pickle shelf, saw me rounding the corner to make sure everyone was okay, and snatch her kid off saying he'll take care of it. Come on. Or the guy who cusses out me, my direct supervisor, and 3 other managers plus a random lady because we don't carry Bud's best cookies. I laugh now at the way he exclaimed, "I thought this was a Jero Serwai store," in a deep South accent. Worse I haven't seen, but discovered if you break something, either let us know or put it somewhere visible. It's disgusting to grab a thing of spaghetti sauce that cracked a while back and now has a layer of green on it. Similar to that. Worst at DC distribution center. Basically the warehouse is done is left clearly unusable for us. Cat food with a lid bent open. Yup, and it had maggots by the time we got it. Cramming pallets in a truck. Even if you just stack cases of salsa in there. Gonna smell real nice by the time it gets to the store. But the worst I've seen a manager do is probably when my roommate was cut in the deli. Long story. Try to hide details for personal privacy. Basically, my friend did works production in the deli. Customer asked for sliced pepperoni, but only this brand that is way too small to cut on a deli slicer. I turns them away, as per her instructions. Manager P comes up and asks A to slice the pepperoni. It refuses, but eventually caves. Winds up cutting a good gash through her hand, between thumb and wrist. I was unloading her truck in the back when she got pulled to the office and only saw she had some paper towels pressed in her hand. An hour later, she came out of the office and found me on the floor, apparently. She had to call my fiancé for a ride to the ER. Fiancé gets there right as I go on lunch. We talk while they finish up paperwork in the back. P comes out with A and informs us that as it's a Walmart injury, P will have to drive to the ER, and my fiancé can follow if she chooses. P forgets the ER they have to go to, so she calls the store manager again to figure this out. A finally lights a cigarette, at which point I notice she doesn't even have a Band-Aid, just more paper towels pressed against her hand, as P is on the phone. Another manager comes out to inform us that we can't smoke that close to the entrance, while casually leaning on the ashtray thing right by the door. During this delay, I learned that they didn't actually start paperwork for A until my fiancé got there beforehand, was pretty much nothing but panic calls to the store manager about where to go. A winds up with 3 stitches, luckily no nerve damage or anything serious. As the final what the fuck of this story, apparently P drove straight past the ER the first time, and my fiancé had to call A to tell her to turn around. So to recap, It was told to ignore safety protocols by P, wound up getting injured, and spent 5 hours watching managers scramble to cover there before helping her. Fiancé made a 30-minute drive to be told she couldn't drive her up there. Don't get me wrong, I love this job, even stupid customers I deal with, but a lot of the managers I loathe with a deep passion. Oh, one more, much more mild, we're an academy store, which means we're the model store for the area. Managers come and train and see one best way in action, then go home and try to emulate it. I'm trying to speed run the pharmacy section with a coworker, so we're cutting up while we're slinging fruit. Right beside us is the pharmacy line, and a guy, vaguely nondescript, is chilling, second in line. I look over at him, and he suddenly starts gazing around like he's lost. I ask if he's okay. He responds, "Yeah, just thought I was in another dimension." I look at my coworker, he shrugs and continues stocking. The guy isn't obviously injured or anything, so I continue stocking. The guy keeps on. From other store, they'll push you out the way, cuss at you. Even CAP workers will push you. This store's much nicer. Internally, I think fucking fire them. But aloud I say, I guess we're just nicer people. He straight up cackles and walks away from the line. Weird, but at least it was a compliment.